Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. I'm not a, I'm a general physician. I'm not an endocrinologist, but still I'll try to make this subject very clear. Today we'll be talking on SIDH, inappropriate secretion of ADH hormone. And this is quite common, which you will come across in your everyday practice. You will see a person very frequently. So syndrome of inappropriate secretion of ADH hormone, or also we use the word SIDH. We'll be discussing under the heading definition, etiology, pathophysiology, clinical features, investigations, DD, and treatment and complications. You will say the person is probably suffering from an SIDH when the plasma osmolality is low, that is less than 275. Urine osmolality is more than 100. Urinary sodium is more than 20 milliequivalent with normal dietary salt intake. And there is no thyroid, adrenal, cardiac, liver, or kidney dysfunctions. Clinically, the person is euvolumic, or we call there is no clinical signs of volume depletion like dehydration or excess. There is no tachycardia, there is no decrease in skin turgors, there is no dry mucous membrane, no edema, no ascites, and there is no use of recent diuretics, meaning these three things should be absent. So these are all the signs which shows you that in thyroid, adrenal, cardiac, liver, and kidney there is a water retention, and these are the signs of depletion. Diuretic use will also produce dilute urine and increase in plasma osmolality. So all these conditions should be ruled out. And in that condition, if you get plasma osmolality less than 275, urinary osmolality more than 100, and urinary sodium is more than 20, you suspect what we call as SIDH. Now what you will get typical in SIDH? Low plasma sodium concentration, that is less than 130, low plasma osmolality, that is less than 270, and urinary osmolality not minimally low, means not lower than 150. It is usually more than 150. When all these three things you get on examination of urinary osmolality, urinary sodium is also more than 20, plasma osmolality is less than 270. So it is always, we use a word urinary osmolality more than plasma, that way usually we are termed. And plasma concentration of sodium becomes less than 130, we call hyponatremia. So if you come across any person with hyponatremia, always keep it in mind, it can be SIDH. And to rule out that, you will have to do a plasma osmolality and urine osmolality and compare the two. So urinary sodium concentration is more, low normal plasma urea, creatinine, uric acid, all these are normal or low. Exclusion of all other causes of hyponatremia, and absence of heart disease, kidney, liver, thyroid, adrenal, etc., which produces abnormality in sodium. So rule out all those. To understand SIDH, you should understand the action of ADH hormone. So I'm making a summary of this. ADH hormone is secreted, actually it is manufactured and released from hypothalamus by paraoptic nucleus, supraoptic nucleus, and stored in posterior pituitary. Whenever there is a stimulus to an ADH hormone, the stimulus very commonly is because of what we call as a hypovolemia, hypotension, fall of blood pressure, and increased osmolality. So in this condition, there is a stimulus for the posterior pituitary to release ADH hormone. And once the ADH hormone is released into the portal circulation, we call the portal venous circulation of hypothalamic hypophyseal axis, portal circulation. ADH hormone will act on a distal convoluted tubule. It will increase the aquaporin action, water will be reabsorbed and water will be retained. This is the main action of ADH hormone. Now, in spite of the person having a normal blood volume, plasma osmolality is also being normal. Still, there is inappropriate secretion of NADH hormone, and that will result into what we call as an SIDH. And that is how it happens. Because if the person has got a decreased plasma osmolality, increased plasma volume, or increased water content in the body, ADH hormone secretion should decrease. Instead of that, the ADH hormone level are increased and there is an inappropriate secretion of ADH hormone. That's why we use the word SIDH. If you see the classification or terminology, there are 4 words which are being utilized: type A, type B, type C and type D. Type A is most common, that is 60 to 70% of the people are suffering from SIDH type A, and 20 to 40% are suffering from type B. C and D are very, very rare. What is type A? Erratic, unregulated release of an ADH hormone. This is the most common. While type D, which is a normal ADH secretion, but there is no action of ADH on kidney, because kidney cells, that is distal convoluted cells, are resistant to ADH action, and that we call as a nephrogenic SIDH, or also it is called as NSIAD, nephrogenic inappropriate secretion of ADH hormone. While type A is very commonly because of ectopic production of NADH hormone, very frequently seen in a lung cancer or maybe in a teratomas. In a lung cancer, specifically small cell cancer, or we call oat cell cancer, there is an ectopic production of NADH hormone, and this particular will produce classical SIDH. While type B is because of resetting of an osmostate. Normally, the osmostate which is being set up. So, at that particular osmostate, as soon as the osmotic pressure starts increasing, just slightly elevated, immediately there is a release of an ADH hormone. While here, it is set at a lower point. So, modest or constant, there is a constant leak of an ADH hormone. That is type B. So, these two are the most common. And in type C, there is a downward resetting of the osmostate, and that produces a SIDH. There is another condition where you get a loss of sodium chloride in urine, and that is we call it a cerebral salt wasting syndrome, and this is always a diagnosis of exclusion. What are the criteria what you require in a cerebral salt wasting? There has to be some CNS damage. Kidney should throw out sodium and chloride. So in urine, you will have an excess of sodium and chloride. Patient must not have physiological cause for sodium and chloride exclusion. And there should be effective circulatory arterial volume. And there should not be aldosterone deficiency, or person should not be on any diuretics. If these are ruled out, the person, we say that person is having cerebral salt wasting syndrome. Very frequently it happens in a cerebrovascular stroke, intracranial hemorrhage, head injury, etc. Because of this particular condition, and while you are correcting sodium balance, you can end up with what is called as a central pontine myelonesis. Demyelinating conditions affecting the pontine and extrapontine neurons. It will end up with quadriplegia, pseudobulbar palsy, seizures, coma, and even sometime death. Who are at high risk? Patient with hypokalemia, extensive burns patient, patient who are on a high dose of thiazide diuretics, alcoholic person, and elderly person. They end up with what is called as a central pontine myelinosis. So this particular condition can be seen in a person with a hyponatremia if they are not corrected early. The common etiology for SIDH, we put them into an ectopic group, and pituitary disorders which produces decrease or increased production, what we call is the increased production of an ADH hormone. So in an ectopic condition, the most common is carcinoma of bronchus, that is we have already told you, small cell carcinoma, ovarian teratomas, sometimes bladder malignancy, mesotheliomas, etc. Or person is on a therapy from outside, we call iatrogenic. In that particular person is either on oxytocin or vasopressin, or we call desmopressin. So if he is on any one of these treatment for diabetes insipidus or for any other conditions, so then this person can have a symptom sign suggestive like SIDH. While pituitary hypersecretion can happen secondary due to ideally carcinoma of bronchus will produce ectopic secretions, while a drug like carbamazepine, nicotine, then head injury, infections, pneumonia, lung abscess, tuberculosis, encephalitis, meningitis, these are all intracranial pathophysiology, or we call CNS, head trauma, etc. In a respiratory condition like positive pressure ventilation, pneumothorax, bronchial asthma, certain CNS condition like GBS, hydrocephalus, multiple sclerosis, cerebrovascular hemorrhage, intracranial hemorrhage, even cerebrovascular stroke can lead to pituitary hypersecretions. And these are some of the conditions which can produce SIDH. So look for ectopic condition and look for CNS condition and drugs. Among drugs, carbamazepine and nicotine comes topmost, and tricyclic antidepressants. Sometimes MAO inhibitors and SSRI. So these are some of the drugs which are very, very common. There is a big list. CNS, particularly we have told you stroke, hemorrhage, infection, trauma, psychotic disorders. Among malignancies, small cell carcinoma of lung, head and neck malignancy, rare condition like olfactory neoblastoma, extrapulmonary small cell carcinoma. Then drugs, we already told you, carbamazepine, chlorpropamide, cyclophosphamide, SSRI, MAO inhibitors, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, opiates, sodium valproates, INF alpha, INF gamma. These are some of the drugs. Transsphenoidal surgery, following a transsphenoidal surgery, you can have an increased production of an ADH hormone. Pulmonary disease like pneumonia, asthma, pneumothorax. Hormone deficiency, particularly in a case of a hypopituitarism, hypothyroidism, can also have a reflex increased production of an ADH hormone. If a person is on desmopressin for von Willebrand disorder or hemophilia, if person is given oxytocin or vasopressin for control of GI bleed, particularly esophageal varices, in all these conditions you can have an inappropriate secretion of an ADH hormone. This is what happens in a normal person. How does the ADH acts? It increases the plasma volume and it will inhibit reflexly by a negative feedback in a hypothalamus to release what we call as an ADH. And person will have a scanty urine, concentrated urine. So this will be very typical when the ADH hormone is being secreted. So ADH hormone will produce water retention, dilution, hyponatremia, volume expansion, and there will be secondary natriuresis. Sodium and water are lost, potassium is also lost, and person will have euvolemic hyponatremia, reduced serum osmolality, increased urine osmolality, and increased urinary sodium. So when you get these findings together, we suspect inappropriate secretion of ADH hormone. So this is one example which is being shown, that a lung cell cancer, that is small cell cancer, can produce excess of ADH and then can have effect on a kidney and produces all those features what we have mentioned before. We have already told you there are 3 receptors for ADH hormone: V1A, V1B and V2. V1A will produce vasoconstriction and elevate the blood pressure. V1B2 will stimulate ACTH secretion and will give rise to a release of adrenocortical hormones, and ACTH production will increase. While V2 will act on an aquaporin and will increase the reabsorption of water and will increase the blood volume. And this is what is happening in an SIDH. We already explained you this, that ADH hormone will increase the water reabsorption, and because of that urinary volume will reduce. There will be concentrated urine, we call as a hyperosmolar urine, as well as because of ADH hormone there is a natriuresis, so urinary sodium is also increased. So urinary sodium level are high, urine osmolality is also increased and volume is decreased. This is very typical. Why? Blood volume will be increased. So because of that there will be decreased osmolality of plasma. So serum plasma osmolality will become hypoosmolar. There will be dilutional hyponatremia. Because of this dilutional hyponatremia, person will get anorexia, nausea, vomiting, irritability, confusion, disorientation, and sometimes even seizures. And because of decreased production of an aldosterone, also you will have a decrease in urinary sodium will increase, and simultaneously, you know very well, aldosterone will have effect on what we call as a distal convoluted tubule, and it will increase absorption of sodium and water. Because aldosterone level is low, urinary sodium excretion will increase and person will get hyponatremia. So aldosterone is also one of the factor which can produce, decreased level of aldosterone will produce hyponatremia. So increased ADH hormone in SIDH will produce hyponatremia and natriuresis. So there is water retention, plasma dilution, and person gets hyponatremia, dilutional hyponatremia. As well as because of water retention, there is a suppression of a RAS system, and because of suppression of a RAS system, no aldosterone production. Aldosterone production is reduced, which we have already shown you here, that because of water retention, there is a decreased aldosterone production, and that will produce natriuresis. So again, natriuresis will produce hyponatremia and natriuresis, and there is a increased production of ANP, atrial natriuretic peptide, ANP, from an atrium, and because of that atrial natriuretic peptide production, there is again a natriuresis. So you will have a urinary sodium level high, water retention, and you will have a hyponatremia. And this is how the 3 mechanism, that is ADH hormone, suppression of RAS system, and increased production of ANP in SIDH will lead to what we call as a natriuresis and hyponatremia. While in a posterior pituitary SIDH, there is an excess of ADH production, and that results into what we call as a retention of water. And because of retention of water, increased blood volume, fluid retention, urine output is reduced, so urine become concentrated, there is a low urine output, and because of water retention in plasma, dilutional hyponatremia, so sodium remains same, but water content is increased, and because of that the person can develop muscle cramps, weakness, anorexia, nausea, vomiting, person will be irritable, he will have confusion, disorientation, and even a person can get seizures. And this is because of the effect on the brain. So because of the retention of water, and hyponatremia. Water enters inside into the cell and you get cerebral edema. So there is a low sodium, loss of sodium, potassium and chloride. There is a slow adaptation and person sometimes even get demyelination, osmotic demyelination, and that is what we call as a pontine demyelination. This is in a cerebral salt wasting because of any damage to the cerebral hemisphere. You will have adrenergic output, dopamine output, natriuretic like BNP output, digitalis, etc. Or in a person who has been given an IV saline, also you will have an effect on a kidney, and kidney will throw out large excretion of sodium and chloride. So urine will contain a high amount of urine plus large excretion of sodium and chloride. So urine output will be more, containing more of sodium and more of chloride. And there is a lack of aldosterone because of low renin states, elevated blood pressure, high extracellular fluid volume, and that will produce lack of aldosterone. That will also produce natriuresis. And this is very classical in case of a cerebral salt wasting. So because of hyponatremia, now person starts getting symptoms and signs. So once the sodium becomes less than 135, you will start having a symptoms. Person will have a low urine output in absence of hypovolemia. Person is having hyponatremia because of water retention. Serum osmolality will decrease because there is a water retention, so it will fall below 285. Urine specific gravity is high because urine is concentrated, more of sodium, less of water, and person starts getting symptom signs of hyponatremia, that is we call nausea, vomiting, and altered mental status, earliest changes. So if any time you come across hyponatremia and urinary sodium is high, urinary specific gravity is high, urine output is low, and person is having plasma osmolality becoming less, do suspect SIDH. So this is a combination. Again I am repeating. Decreased urine output in spite of normal blood volume means in absence of any blood loss, water loss. So there is no hypovolemia. Still urine output is less. There is dilutional hyponatremia, meaning serum sodium is low, osmolality is also low. So sodium low, osmolality also low. While in urine, specific gravity is high and osmolality is also high and urinary sodium is also high. And that starts producing symptom signs of hyponatremia. If you come across this, suspect SIDH. So what we have uttered, plasma osmolality will be less, urine osmolality is increasing, urinary sodium is high in spite of a normal dietary intake, and there is absence of thyroid disorder, adrenal, cardiac, liver, kidney, etc., which produces abnormality in a sodium level. Also, there is euvolemic state, there is no signs of dehydration or excess, both extreme. So, person is euvolemic. In spite of, means if a person is of excess of volume, he should have a urine output more, but here urine output is less. And in a case of depletion, urine output will be less, but there is no signs of volume depletion like tachycardia, skin turgor, decreased skin turgor, or we call loss of elasticity, dry mucous membrane, and in case of excess, edema, ascites, those are absent. So all those are absent, no thyroid disorder, no adrenal, no cardiac, no liver, no kidney disorders which produces water and sodium imbalance, and there is no recent use of diuretic. When all these are absent, plus there is plasma osmolality is low, urine osmolality is high, urinary sodium is high, and there is hyponatremia because of more water content in plasma. So that is SIDH. These are supplementary features, may or may not be. Plasma uric acid level is low, urea is low, and correction of hyponatremia through the fluid restriction. You just restrict little amount of fluid intake, the hyponatremia will get corrected. So failure to correct hyponatremia by normal saline infusion again favors SIDH. Clinical manifestation will depend upon the level of sodium and how fast the level drops. So clinical signs will depend upon that, right from minor symptoms like altered level of consciousness to severe symptoms like unconscious, seizures, coma, and sometimes even person can die. So just I'm going through. If sodium level is more than 120, patients are usually asymptomatic. If it is between 110 to 120, now he'll start getting confusion, lethargy. And when it becomes less than 110, then he starts getting convulsions, coma, and sometimes even a person can get death. So at 120, still person is asymptomatic, but less than 120, he will start becoming symptomatic. And early symptoms, confusion, lethargy, and altered level of consciousness. Less than 110, so remember 110 to 120. So less than 110, convulsions, coma, and sometimes even the person gets death. This is because of cerebral edema and raised intracranial pressure. So these are the figure. 145 to 135 normal, no symptoms. 135 to 120 usually again person is asymptomatic. Between 110 to 120 now he starts getting symptoms like apathy, lethargy, weakness, disorientation, thirst, fatigue. Very rarely they get seizures. So this is early findings. Between 100 to 110, confusion, lethargy, nausea, vomiting, abdominal cramps, muscle twitchings. Person starts now here, the person will start getting seizures, etc. And when it becomes less than 100, now person will be absolutely in a danger. Delirium, convulsions, coma, severe hypothermia, areflexia, chain stroke breathing, and even the person can die. So this is a classical presentation. Remember this figure and never try to go below 120. As soon as a person is having less than 135, start treatment. Here, even slight restriction of water intake will help a lot. And if not corrected, then you will have to give what we call as a hypertonic saline. So there is something what is happening we call as a central pontine myelinosis. Because of a change in a brain volume in response to the change in osmolar gradients across the blood-brain barrier, serum sodium is changing during the treatment can trigger CNS myelinosis. So if you correct sodium very fast, the brain cells will now get damaged because of the entry and exit of water. This is osmotic demyelination. It is rare, but a serious complication in a chronic hyponatremia. And when you try to correct it very fast. So do keep and watch. Don't try to correct it very fast in a chronic hyponatremia. And even in an acute also, while correcting, you should see that the correction is according to the guidelines. That should not be a rapid collection. So it is always said that within 1 to 4 days of rapid collection, if you correct more than 20 millimole in 24 hours, plasma sodium, irrespective of the method, whatever you employ, you can end up with a central pontine myelinosis. So don't try to correct very rapidly and overcorrections. Now this is the difference between SIDH and cerebral salt wasting. What is happening in an SIDH? In SIDH, because of excess of ADH hormone, extracellular fluid volume is slightly increased because of retention of water. Plasma sodium is low, which is also low in cerebral salt wasting because there is a loss of sodium via urine because of decrease in vasoconstriction. Person will have a postural hypotension very frequently, while here postural hypotension will be very frequently because of loss of water and sodium. So that will produce what we call as a postural hypotension, quite common in cerebral salt wasting. Here ADH level is very high. Here also ADH level is increased because of decreased plasma volume, extracellular volume, because person is dehydrated because of loss of water and sodium. Urine osmolality is high here. It is appropriately high because of loss of sodium and water. Even chloride is lost. Urinary sodium excretion is more than 40 in both. Plasma uric acid level is low due to volume expansion, while here it is low due to urinary loss in cerebral salt wasting. Effect of isotonic saline may worsen hyponatremia, while here by giving an isotonic saline it will improve hyponatremia and person will have a improvement in a CNS status. As far as the treatment is concerned, here you need a restriction of water, and what you need is a hypertonic saline infusion, while here you need a salt from outside and isotonic saline. And in SIDH, you might be benefited by diuretics and also by Veptans. So these are the difference between SIDH and cerebral salt wasting. We have already discussed regarding SIDH and diabetes insipidus in previous lecture. So I am not going in detail again. So these two conditions will have hyponatremia, while diabetes insipidus will have hypernatremia. So whenever you get a SIDH, the closest differential diagnosis is cerebral salt wasting syndrome. In investigation, you will have to do serum sodium, potassium, chloride and bicarbonates. Plasma osmolality you will have to calculate. In urine, urinary sodium, urine osmolality. Serum creatinine, blood urea, blood glucose, serum uric acid level, serum cortisol level and TSH level. This should be normal if you are suspecting SIDH. So cortisol level, thyroid stimulating hormones, etc. should be normal. While all this blood urea, uric acid level will be low because of dilution, while sodium will be also low because of dilution. Plasma osmolality will be reduced because of dilution, while urinary sodium will be high and urine osmolality will be high. This will be peculiarity in a case of an SIDH. While you try to rule out other conditions, there will be associated potassium decrease, magnesium decrease will also potentiate ADH hormone release. So potassium level low, magnesium level low also are sometimes the cause for excess of ADH hormone release. And urine osmolality and sodium level is high. TSH level and cortisol level will be normal. You try to estimate all this. We have already discussed, repeated again and again. Person will have a hyponatremia, we call dilutional hyponatremia, so plasma osmolality will be low. Urinary sodium and urinary osmolality will be high. In blood, ADH level will be elevated. You will have a normal renal function, so blood urea creatinine will be normal. Cortisol level will be normal. TSH level will be normal. So this will be the typical picture what you will come across. We have already mentioned. Serum sodium will be low. Urinary sodium will be more than 20, sometime even more than 40. Urinary osmolality will be higher. We say that higher than serum. Serum osmolality will be less than 275. Blood urea creatinine will be normal. Urine specific gravity will be higher. Adrenal level will be normal. Serum potassium level may be low. You have to have a differential diagnosis from hyponatremia. You will have to differentiate from cerebral salt wasting syndrome. So try to find out that other causes of hypervolemia, like retention of water in case of say congestive cardiac failure, renal causes, thyroid disorders, etc. Cushing syndromes, and try to rule out CNS causes, that is cerebral salt wasting syndromes. Now, as far as differential diagnosis of hyponatremia is concerned, I am not dealing in detail. So in a euvolemic condition, first thing to suspect is SIDH. You can have hyponatremia in case of a decreased blood volume. These are the conditions where you can have hyponatremia. And with hyponatremia like congestive cardiac failure, liver disorders, we call as portal hypertension, nephrotic syndrome, advanced kidney disorders, this should be ruled out because these are the conditions which is very closest differential diagnosis of euvolemic hyponatremia. As far as management is concerned, first management is normalize the serum sodium in 24 to 48 hours. And for normalizing the serum sodium, you have to normalize the serum osmolality, and that is by decreasing the water intake. So correct the excess of extravascular fluid volume. And this can be done by restriction of fluid. You can give a slight dose of a loop diuretics, which can correct very easily. And there will be an improvement in a neurological symptoms and signs. If person is having a severe symptoms and signs and a person is having a serum sodium less than 120, then you require a treatment what we call as hypertonic saline, not isotonic saline. Isotonic saline will worsen the condition in SIDH. So raise the serum sodium. What we say is treat the underlying disease if possible. Initial therapy is to raise the serum sodium. Prolong the therapy in a patient with a persistent SIDH. You have to give a longer treatment. Say like if a person has got some hormonal deficiency, say adrenal insufficiency or hypothyroidism, replace the hormones. If person has got infection like pneumonia, meningitis, tuberculosis, treat those conditions. If there are some drugs which a person is taking, say like tricyclic antidepressant, MAO inhibitors, SSRI, etc., stop those medicines. And correction should be done aggressively if the person is having serum sodium less than 120. Try to correct it fast. But while correcting fast, you should keep it in mind regarding a central pontine lysis of pontine cells we call, pontine myelinolysis. Aggressive management should be done in a case of seizures, stupor, coma, means when the serum sodium becomes less than 110. So try to treat that very fast by giving hypertonic saline. But while correcting that, you have to see that the sodium level is not corrected very fast. So correction is 0.5 to 1 milliequivalent per hour and not more than 10 to 12 milliequivalent in 24 hours. So don't correct more than 12 milliequivalent in 24 hours. Have a gradual correction to bring down the sodium value to a maximum of 125 to 130. Usually we use a 3% hypertonic saline, and you can add furosemide to increase the water excretion and to limit the treatment induced volume expansion, because while you give all this treatment, you are also expanding the volume. So take care of that. So combination of furosemide, hypertonic saline and water restriction becomes the main pillar in a treatment in case of an emergency where you want to correct serum sodium. Again repeating, serum sodium should not be corrected very rapidly. You correct maximum is 0.5 millimoles in 1 hour. Maximum is 12 millimoles in 24 hours. Don't correct in excess. In an acute setting, less than 48 hours, if a person gets a severe hyponatremia, correct it by hypertonic saline, loop diuretics, and sometimes you might require even a vasopressin 2 receptor antagonist. So you might require this. But by and large, the hypertonic saline, loop diuretic, and water restrictions are enough. So these three are the main pillar. And in case of an emergency, you might use vasopressin 2 receptor antagonist. We call web tanks. So you can use those particular things. So these are the hypertonic saline, vasopressin, and water vasopressin 2 receptor antagonist and water restrictions. In a chronic setting, first is fluid restriction, then Veptans, then loop diuretics, and sometimes you might give even mannitol or democycline. These are not commonly being utilized. The most common is fluid restriction, Veptans, and loop diuretics. See here, 3% or we call hypertonic saline is not used. Usually, either urea or mannitol to have water loss is commonly being utilized. Again, corrections should not be done very rapidly. So these are all those things. 3% or we call hypertonic saline, and sometimes you can use fludrocortisone also to increase sodium in a salt wasting syndrome. Complications are seizures, cerebral edema. You might have a cerebral hemorrhage. You can develop a pulmonary edema, muscle cramps, weakness, etc. And person can even die because of central pontine myelinolysis. So here I end my lecture, what we call as SIDH. There is a triphasic response in a post-surgery neurosurgery. You have to keep it in mind. In this particular, there is a transient SIDH. So don't get upset. Wait for a while and then treat it. And later on, the person will go into what we call as a permanent diabetes insipidus. So keep that thing in mind. So I end my lecture here. So I hope this will be very helpful to you, because you will come across in your everyday practice what we call as a person of SIDH. So keep that thing in mind. Again repeating, if you get urinary sodium high, urine osmolality high, in spite of normal volume, no clinical signs of dehydration, no clinical signs of water retention, person has got hyponatremia, plasma osmolality is low, do suspect SIDH. In absence of thyroid, adrenal glands are normal, do suspect SIDH.